This is CBC Here and Now.
Extremely disappointing news for everyone in this room.
If there's no Bay du Nord, what is there?
It's ours, it will still be ours, and we need to make sure that we reap the benefits of that.
Tonight, an unexpected announcement. The Bay du Nord project put on the sidelines for 3 years.
Our team is about holding police accountable, and if there are particular patterns that exist within police agencies involving criminal behavior, we need to know that so we can better serve the people and better deal with these cases.
Policing the police, why SIRT is starting to track race-based data. Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Well, tonight there are serious concerns about the future of the province's next oil mega project. The Bay du Nord development is on hold. Equinor, the Norwegian company behind the offshore project, dropped the news as the energy industry gathers to discuss the future in this province. Terry Roberts reports.
I'm here in Come By Chance, where the federal government just a short time ago announced a big investment. Nearly $90 million in low-interest loans to help this former oil refinery convert into a producer of renewable fuels. On a typical day, this would dominate the headlines, along with all the hype about wind energy and hydrogen potential that's being talked about at the Energy Conference. But a stunning midday news release from Equinor overshadowed all the celebrations in the energy sector. The Norwegian oil giant announced that the massive Bay du Nord oil project will be postponed for up to 3 years. At the Energy Conference in St. John's, that news changed the mood.
Clearly, this is extremely disappointing news for everyone in this room and our entire industry and our province. I have spoken with Tora Loset of Equinor and expressed our disappointment and concerns, and he will speak here tomorrow.
If there's no Bay du Nord, what is there? We might get a little bit of exploration drilling in the future, but if Bay du Nord doesn't happen, will BP, assuming they discover something, will BP go ahead with it? So I think this is serious. This is serious stuff.
The company blames significant increasing development costs. Equinor had been signaling a final investment decision would likely be made next year. Now there is worry.
The company has assured me that that this is largely market forces at play, and it's not a cancellation. It's using some time to reevaluate the best way forward. They can't forget the resource is still ours. It's still out there. It's 8 kilograms per barrel, so it's one of the lowest carbon footprint products in the world. It is valuable, and they see it as such. Equinor themselves are still drilling.
I think it underlines that while Bay du Nord is important, it's also important that we are looking to diversify the economy in Newfoundland and Labrador and to ensure that we're actually making investments that help us to move forward in a number of other areas. This is a good example of that kind of diversification, but so is the conversation we were having at Energy NL this morning, which is about the development of onshore and offshore wind for the purposes not only of electricity generation, but hydrogen production, where we are targeting to actually see the first shipments of hydrogen going to Germany by the end of 2025. So I am enormously optimistic about the economic prospects for this province.
It's the second time Equinor has hit the pause button on Bay du Nord, but the company says it's not giving up on the project. The company says it will look at new ways to make the project viable. Equinor is also assessing whether or not it will carry out more exploration in the Flemish Pass next year. Until today, Bay du Nord was seen as the next big step in the offshore. The first deep water project. More than 500 million barrels of recoverable oil and the potential to double that. And billions in revenue to the province over the life of the project. Equinor signaled earlier this year that the project was commercially challenged and that costs were creeping up. No one was expecting today's bombshell. After all, talks with the provincial government over a benefits agreement were ongoing, and the project received federal environmental approval a year ago, with Equinor saying Bay du Nord would be Canada's lowest emitting oil project. The question now is what's next? Well, it could be up to 3 years before we learn whether Bay du Nord has a real future. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Come By Chance.
Indigenous and environmental groups have argued Bay du Nord's approval was seriously flawed. Back in March, 9 Indigenous communities in New Brunswick, along with the Sierra Club, called on a federal judge to hit the brakes. Today, the Sierra Club says the province should see this 3-year delay as a wake-up call.
I think the economics of these projects is extremely shaky, and it would be a good time for the province of Newfoundland and Labrador and the federal government to have a realistic discussion about rapidly decarbonizing the economy, because betting on a future of large-scale oil and gas expansion off the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador, I don't think is realistic, and certainly our view has been that it's a bad investment not only for the climate but also for the local economy.
Now, as Terry Roberts had mentioned, the Bay du Nord announcement overshadowed a massive investment made today by Ottawa.
Today, I am very pleased to announce an $86 million contribution on the part of the Government of Canada in the Come-By-Jance refinery in order to support Brea Renewables in preparing this landmark facility for the economy of tomorrow.
The minister says that money will help convert the facility to produce biodiesel. That means the Come-By-Chance refinery could be turning things like soy into clean fuel by as early as March. Wilkinson says that work will create hundreds of jobs and will help in the fight against climate change.
One of the key opportunities that comes through the transition is what brings us here today, which is clean fuels. Clean fuels are an essential part of the clean technology mix in a net zero world. While electrification will be a chosen route in some sectors, clean fuels are also going to play a very significant role going forward.
Good evening. I'm Heather Gillis, still filling in for Ashley while she's at the weather conference. Let's take a look at our weather headlines tonight. We'll have a few clouds for much of the island, and we could have some showers in Labrador, even possibly a thunder shower in Happy Valley Goose Bay tonight, tomorrow. It is going to be cool anywhere along the coast, but it's going to be warm inland with temperatures reaching almost 20 degrees, breaching that. Another warm day in store on the west coast with the humidex possibly at even 30 degrees. For Friday, Saturday, the temperatures really back off and we'll have some showers moving on in. Let's take a look at our current temperatures now and conditions in St. John's. 14 degrees, a lot brighter right now than it was for most of today. Light winds here as well. Taking a look at our future tracker, what's in store now. What we'll see tonight is some clearing cloud for the island, some showers moving across parts of Labrador, but into tomorrow we'll have some increasing cloud. As we go into Thursday, we'll have all the details on that forecast coming up.
Thanks, Heather. Well, the province's police watchdog is beginning to collect race-based data. The Serious Incident Response Team steps in when there's a death, serious injury, sexual offense, or domestic violence involving police. Now, the team has only been operational for 2 years, but as Ariana Kelland reports, SIRT's director says it's time to track inequalities in the justice system.
There's a small team in this province whose job it is to police the police, to investigate possible wrongdoing in the most serious of cases. And part of that, says SIRT's director, is looking for inequality in civilians' interactions with police.
Our team is about holding police accountable, and if there are particular patterns that exist within police agencies involving criminal behavior, we need to know that so we can better serve the people and better deal with these cases.
Some police forces and oversight bodies have already started collecting race-based data, like King's counterpart in Ontario. But King says it's no easy feat.
It's not a simple exercise to determine how you're going to collect the data. So it's a more complicated and lengthier process than you might think, and it involves collaboration.
That collaboration includes Indigenous communities, many of whom have had fraught relationships with the RCMP and Royal Newfoundland Constabulary, particularly in Labrador, where there is a long history of tension with the Mounties, like this arrest from 2020, where the RCMP faced harsh criticism for its treatment of an Innu woman under arrest. Suleiman Giwa is a professor at Memorial University. Much of his work has focused on race and policing.
It's both a way for community to hold institutions like this accountable, but also to ensure that there's a transparency that comes with the work that gets done.
Giwa says SIRT NL is being proactive, and the province need not look far for lessons to learn. High racial tensions, protests fueled by police-involved killings have exploded across North America in recent years, beginning in part with the death of George Floyd.
I don't think that police organizations need to necessarily wait until we're seeing some of the things that we've been seeing in other major metropolitan cities in Canada for them to be acting in the way that they're acting. I think that we can take some of those lessons and then start beginning to apply them in the context of Newfoundland and Labrador.
Giwa stresses the importance of having marginalized communities at the table when policies and decisions are made. King says his team is still new and is committed to building on those relationships.
You have to earn trust. You don't get it automatically.
Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
And coming up in about 30 minutes, we'll have more from Ariana Kelland's wide-ranging interview with Michael King of SIRT, Newfoundland and Labrador's police watchdog.
Your Excellency, how are you?
Good to see you, Premier.
Good to see you. How are you?
Fine, thank
Welcome to Newfoundland and Labrador.
Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you.
For the first time in 2 decades, Iceland is making a state visit to Canada, and that includes a stopover in St. John's. President Gudni Johannesson and his Canadian-Icelandic wife, Eliza Reid, met with Premier Fury and his wife at Confederation Building. The trip is the last leg in a 4-day whirlwind trip to Canada. Both the President and First Lady will be involved with talks concerning oceans, health technology, renewable energy, and the fishery.
We learned the hard way in Iceland that unless you control your fisheries, you will find yourself in trouble. Fishery stocks in Iceland are managed carefully through a system of quotas. It's not a system without any drawbacks or negatives, but what is certain is that we can be pretty confident that we will not face stock depletion, as was the risk in the 20th century.
And that's not all. We'll hear more from the Icelandic president. Tomorrow on Here and Now, Land and Sea host Jane Adey sits down with President Gudni Johannesson for a special one-on-one interview. In other news, Marine Atlantic is delaying plans to increase its fuel surcharge. The corporation had planned to bump up the surcharge from 13% to 17% tomorrow. Now that will be delayed until at least December. Marine Atlantic says the decision to delay came after evaluating measures like the federal carbon tax. And the Gathering Place in St. John's is getting a big boost. A $2 million donation will help convert the former Sisters of Mercy convent on Military Road. It will become a new emergency shelter along with transitional and affordable housing. It'll take up to 2 years and more money to transform the convent, but the work kicked off today.
Nothing can be more challenging or more difficult for our staff than to have someone knocking at our door at night and we can't let them in. Someone looking for a safe place, a warm space out of the elements. So this new facility will go a long way to help to fix that and provide new opportunities for people here in this area. This will be the main shelter room right here with 20 beds. There will be 5, I think 6 out there. There'll be 7 more back here, and there'll be a larger number again out and back. The second floor right above us, it will become a floor again. People over on this side, it's just a few boards. There's no floor there right now, but the second floor will become our transitional space. It will have a combination of a congregate style living as we have in our shelter, but also some semi-private rooms. And our third and fourth floor will become supportive housing. They'll essentially become people's new homes, where they can live independently, but yet have the supports around them to live their lives in an enriched way and supported way, in the best way possible, yet being affordable and independent.
why the guests felt that as good as we were at the gathering place, providing services every single day, and as good as our shelter is, there were times when they could not get into the shelter because it was filled. They also told us that coming back to the shelter night after night after night because they had nowhere else to sleep wasn't good enough, that they needed support to find housing for them more permanently, and housing where they could get some support with their own health challenges so that they'd be comfortable remaining in that housing. So we knew from that we needed a better shelter, a bigger shelter. We needed to have supportive housing, and we needed to have transitional housing. All of that required a lot of space.
In sports news, the hockey season has come to an end for the Newfoundland Growlers. The Growlers lost 3-2 at the Mary Brown Centre in St. John's last night. Florida's John McCarron scored with 11 minutes left in double overtime. That sends the Florida Everblades off to the Kelly Cup final and ends the Growlers' playoff run. The team will start next season at home in St. John's on October 20th. Opera on the Avalon unveiled plans for its 15th season today. The company bills itself as the only professional opera company in Atlantic Canada. The big news from this morning's announcement, the group will be adapting Lisa Moore's February, which delves into the 1982 Ocean Ranger disaster.
Please join us for a season like no other, promising an unforgettable journey of music, emotion, and discovery.
It is my favorite book. You know, this is one of the joys of this job, is that we get to look as an organization at work of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that we think is really important and we want to share as cultural ambassadors. And February is one such book, right? And it's also, I'm mindful of, we're talking about the Ocean Ranger and you know, the memory of 84 men. We want to turn our history into art and share those stories with Canadians and also the world. So these are important stories, and we are honored that we get the chance to do that. And Lisa's book is an extraordinary book. There's a reason why it won Canada Reads, right? It's meaningful. It resonates beyond the story of the Ocean Ranger. It's a story about grief and loss and human connection.
When I went to a workshop and heard the singers singing our work, it created shivers through my body. It made tears run down my face, and it was a total thrill.
Every time a work is changed into some other genre or medium, you learn something new about the work. Opera is really about the human voice and the power of it, and so listening to these singers fill the room with their voices has been it just reminds you of what it is to be human, I guess. And we're in this moment of climate crisis, and of course, we depend on oil in this province at the moment, and so it's an important moment to think about the Ocean Ranger, I think.
So we're celebrating our 15th anniversary. It's a huge year for us, and I think it's, you know, all these milestones make you sit back and reflect on what you've accomplished in the past, but really for us it's looking forward to the work that we have to do now in the future. There's so much more to be done, and we're excited and invigorated to get that underway.
Technology is helping some high schoolers learn a little more about science and the weather. More from the CMOS conference coming up.
And speaking of weather, some really warm temperatures across parts of Labrador and into central Newfoundland. Will it last? You're going to have to stay tuned to find out.
University students in Labrador will no longer have to leave the big land to continue their education. You can now complete a master's or doctorate in Happy Valley Goose Bay. For those working behind the scenes, it's a long time coming. Classrooms could even look a little different too. One professor even teaches in a tent.
This program is a dream. It's been years in the making, and it's really started from what we were hearing from people about 5 years ago when we started working on the task force to create the Labrador campus in general, and really hearing what people wanted for educational opportunities in Labrador. What I'm most excited about and most inspired by is the students who are coming in and trusting us with their educational journey, but who are coming in with so much. We don't know what they're going to do. I'm just so endlessly inspired to think, what are they going to do next year, the year after, 5 years, 10 years, and the ripple effects of what these individuals who come into this program will do for their communities and for Labrador in the North. And the magnitude of that, we have no idea. And I find that so inspiring, so heartening, and so humbling to be able to work with students that are coming into our program. And it's such a historic milestone and a historic moment for us that we know this is going to be one to remember in the future.
Oh, this is such important work. How often does anyone ever get to participate in a groundbreaking program that's in response to Indigenous peoples and local people's dreams for education, and for it to be offered locally, and for it to interweave both academic university kinds of learning along with traditional skills and local knowledge. And I'm honored to be a part of it. It's an opportunity to bring together the knowledge that's in Labrador for the people who live here, the ancestors, the elders, the people who know their cultures and want to stay grounded in their cultures as they move on in their learning and their dreams of education.
So access to education in Labrador has always been really difficult at the post-secondary level, and particularly at the graduate level. So many students have to leave home and leave families and communities and their lands and the waters and the cultures that really nourish them and where they really feel connected and where they belong to pursue education. And that's a huge barrier for many people. And so for the Labrador campus, one of our main goals is to keep people home and have them in an educational environment that reflects who they are and that welcomes them and where they belong.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. The absolute final deadline is midnight Friday, June 2nd. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Well, speaking of positive things in Labrador, my goodness, the weather in Labrador is just stunning right now.
Especially in Labrador West and through central Labrador. 24 degrees there today, and even warmer in the west. Let's take a look at those current highs, or today's highs, excuse me. 28 in Labrador City and Churchill Falls. That is just downright summery weather, and 24 in Happy Valley Goose Bay, as we said. Of course, a little cooler in northern Labrador up at Nain, only 8 degrees in the single digits, and a little cooler there in Makkovik, but 15 in, 15 in Makkovik, it was 11 in Hopedale, 21 in Cartwright, and 20 in Mary's Harbour. That is so warm for this time of year, and the warm weather really did continue for parts of the west coast and in through central Newfoundland. You can see 25 in Deer Lake there, and almost 20 degrees in Terra Nova as well. Here on the east coast, on the Avalon Peninsula, not quite that warm. 14 was our high today in St. John's, and 7 in Cape Race, the cool spot. So we didn't get any of that gorgeous weather on the Avalon Peninsula. Moving on now, taking a look at the future tracker. As we head into tonight, we'll see some of these showers move right across Labrador, and we'll see some clearing kind of here, and then some clouds starting to encroach as we head into Thursday. Taking a look at tonight, it'll be mostly Partly cloudy skies for much of the island. Temperatures down in the single digits for much of the island, with the exception of Corner Brook here, 2 degrees in St. John's, 4 in Gander, and 5 in Marystown. Cooler up on the northern peninsula at 3 degrees in St. Anthony, and similar weather into the Straits. Up into the rest of Labrador, though, we will be picking up some showers. In Cartwright, 5 millimeters of rain expected tonight in Makovec. Showers in Nain as well. Possibly even a thunder shower in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. A lot of these showers, though, moving in the overnight after midnight, and it'll cool off significantly for Lab West at 10 degrees. When we're talking about the winds, southwest 20 to 40 for the Avalon, and the windiest spot will be the southeast up near Cartwright and coastal Labrador, 30 gusting to 50. Taking a look at the future tracker again as we go into Thursday. When you wake up tomorrow, what we're going to see is some increasing cloud for the Avalon, Bonavista, the east part of the island, really. We're going to get some increasing cloud, and then these showers are going to push across parts of the northern peninsula into, the afternoon. And let's take a closer look at how all of that will shape up. So for tomorrow, St. John's, kind of like today, a high of 11 degrees is forecasted. Warmer if you are down on the southern Avalon. We've got 18 degrees here with a mix of sun and cloud, but it will be cooler if you are along the coast. And that's really the storyline for much of the province tomorrow. If you're on the coast, it's going to be cooler. If you're inland, it's going to have nice warm temperatures. So let's take a look at those warm temperatures that we can see forecast for Terra Nova and Gander. 26 in Grand Falls, winds are mainly sunny, but you can see the coastal regions here, Niagara Peninsula 15 and 10 in Twillingate. So you won't get the warm weather that your friends in Central will be seeing. Same thing for tomorrow for western parts of the province. Cool down here on the south coast, but as you turn the corner and go up the west coast, up to 26 degrees tomorrow. So absolutely beautiful weather for you folks. We will have some rain moving in the evening for the northern peninsula, but a posted high of 14 for Port au Choix, 8 in St. Anthony, picking up some showers in Lancelot and the Straits, Mary's Harbour, as much as 5 millimeters in Cartwright, 2 to 4 in Makovec, about 2 millimeters expected tomorrow in Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and some showers for Labrador City and Churchill Falls. We'll take a look at your longer term forecast a little later in the show. But first, Ashley. I'm here. Ashley's not. You want to know why? Because she's hanging out with a lot of like-minded people at the CMOS conference, and that's happening here in St. John's. And today she had some special guests, high school students from around the region who wanted to get a lesson in what this weather business is all about.
Okay, well, look around. All right, what's the difference between these two whales? Is this like Pokemon Go? Can you fly over? Is this like Pokemon Go? You just walk around and find more?
This is the Canadian Meteorological and Oceanographic Society. So this is scientists that study the ocean, that's the oceanographer side, and that study the atmosphere and climate, that's the meteorological side. So in short, we got a lot of weather nerds here, and it's having a good time sharing science.
Once you open it,
well, we actually partnered together with a number of different education organizations, and so the kids are just getting a good taste of the world of oceanography and meteorology and having a good time by the look of it.
Hi, my name is Jacques Gautreau. I have the privilege of leading the Ocean School team. We're helping kids understand a little more about marine protection and their connection to the water. Well, we're showing them an augmented reality app that's called Ocean Week Canada. Kids can learn in new and sort of dynamic ways using new technologies and really try to spark their imagination.
It's pretty awesome to see how they can just take that technology and create like 3D animals that as soon as you tilt the screen up, that you can see them swimming around the room, and then the information is just next to them. We learned a lot, really, we did. It was awesome.
Zach, what did you learn about the ocean today?
I learned that whales are very cool.
The oceanographers are asking questions, important questions, and trying to find answers to climate change, to sea level change, to all these things. Our job is to create another generation of people who are going to want to be oceanographers and climate scientists.
It's really exciting, you know. Our field is one that is growing, especially with climate change, and we need more expertise in this area. And obviously, we're all really enthused about this field, so it's really great to see the younger generation starting to get enthused about it too.
certainly not the news that we expected to hear today when we woke up with everything buzzing with Energy NL conference on.
Shocked and disappointed, but still optimistic. Just ahead, Trades NL weighs in on Bay du Nord being stalled, what it might mean for workers in this province. The postponement of the Bay du Nord project and heightened uncertainty about its future will also have an impact on the local workforce. Joining me now to talk about that is Darren King with Trades NL. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the opportunity, Carolyn. It's a pleasure as always.
Well, there was a lot of hope for this project, creating a lot of jobs in this province. What's your reaction to the news of this delay?
Well, I guess right off the bat, we're shocked and disappointed. As I was saying with you a few moments ago in a little chit chat, it's certainly not the news that we expected to hear today when we woke up with everything buzzing with Energy NL conference on and the many positive things happening globally as well as in the province. And of course, as far as we knew, things were moving along fairly positively with the discussions with Equinor. So yeah, I guess certainly shocked and disappointed. would be my my immediate reaction. But I'm trying not to read too much into the delay as well. We've seen these delays before, and we worked through them, and we've succeeded. So I'm trying not to read too much to the delay, except that there's probably stresses within the market and within the company. And we'll stay day to day and continue to communicate with them and see how things unfold.
About how many jobs were you estimating this project could create?
A little difficult to estimate because we didn't have the final details, but everything that we were hearing indicated that around the subsea work, you're probably looking at an average, give or take, of 100 to 150 jobs over a projected 8 to 10 year term, but likely longer than that, because of course, as they find new discoveries offshore, there'll be new tiebacks and new subsea work. So that would have been, I won't say permanent work, but it would have been long-term work for sure. On the top sides, difficult to estimate because it would depend on how much work the company decided to do here. But, as an example, when the Sea Rose and the Terra Nova were both done here, when they were built initially, there was anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 people employed on the top sides work. So it was a pretty substantial hit to the local economy and to organizations like us for sure.
You mentioned off the top the timing of all of this. This comes smack dab in the middle of an energy conference. Do you have any thoughts on why this may be announced on this day in particular?
That's a really good question, and I've thought about that a little bit. And to be honest, I don't. I'm not one of those that tends to try and read things into things and see something that's not there. So I just take it at face value. We all were aware that Equinor was going through a second decision gate and that some key timelines were coming up. We're also aware that there are a lot of other things happening in that company worldwide, and so I just take it at face value that they reached a point where they felt they needed to provide a public advisory, and I can only assume that they felt that Energy NL might be as good a time as any to do it with all of the industry players generally here in the room for the conference.
You're a former politician. You were a minister for years. We know that the province is still negotiating a benefits agreement with Equinor. Do you have any thoughts on whether this delay could be a negotiating tactic?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. Calls for lots of speculation. It's certainly very possible for sure. I mean, the company had a particular vision that they started with, as you would know, and Trades NL, for example, had a different vision of how this would play out. And we were in two different places. Government was heavy in negotiations. We had talked to both Premier Fury and Minister Parsons regularly, and both were, generally supportive of making sure that this FPSO was not going to be developed entirely out of province. So, they both took a hard line. It may have something to do with that, but I suspect it's got a lot more to do with the economics of the project and the economics today. In the environment, in the oil environment and the world environment today, and competing interests for other projects. So probably a little bit of all of that, but as I said before, and even back to my previous life when I was in government, I wouldn't always get too deterred with some of these things. I mean, this happens, and companies make these announcements for a variety of reasons, and we all know, of course, is that who knows, 6 weeks time you could hear another announcement from them changing this. So I think we just got to take it at face value that it's a delay, and we continue to work with Equinor and government to finalize a local benefits agreement that's good for the province and good for the contractors and the workforce here, and make sure that the project is going to be successful and good for the company so that they make money for their shareholders.
Here's another question that's kind of based in speculation, but there have been a lot of protests, a lot of environmental opposition to this project. And we know that as part of the condition of this project being approved by the federal government, there was a stipulation included that force the project to be carbon neutral. Do you think the expense of making that a reality could also be a factor here?
Well, it certainly could be, again, another one of a multitude of factors that would have influenced the decision making. But everything, Carolyn, that I've read and every discussion I participated in, I don't think for a moment that any of the conditions the federal government laid out would be obstacles for Equinor. I mean, they are a very, very environmentally friendly company and world leader in oil and gas in what they're doing. So I don't think that any of that would have been obstacles that would have caused Equinor to pause and say, you know what, why don't we just shelve this project?
Well, Darren King, I'm sure you're quite busy today. I really appreciate you making time for us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carolyn. It's great to catch up with you. All the best.
You too. And staying with the resource industry, you've heard the term green oil. Scientists say it doesn't exist. But what about green steel? Rio Tinto officially opened its office in downtown St. John's today, and while there, its president pulled out a prop, a rare type of iron ore from Labrador, one that will be needed for electric cars and wind turbines. On the Go host Anthony Germain was there and wanted to learn more.
There's a possibility that some people might be cynical when they hear the term green steel. Can you be explicit about what makes it green?
So in the processing of making steel right now is very very intensive. It uses coal, specifically coke, and it's a reductant, and that's used in the blast furnace. So you get a huge amount of greenhouse gas emissions from that. The steel industry has evolved, so 70% of the steel industry is like that, very intensive. It's 7 to 9% of global GHG. They've evolved about 30% where it's electric arc furnaces. To feed the electric arc furnace and be successful in that process, you need high-grade, low-impurity iron ore, which we have. Not all iron ore can go through that. That's about a 2/3 reduction in greenhouse gases. The holy grail is using hydrogen as a reductant, and you pretty well get net zero carbon with the steel. So you need clean power for the hydrogen, and you need high-grade, low-impurity ore like we have in the Labrador Trough to feed into it.
Can you explain this kind of magic ingredient that you're talking about in this rare iron ore? Because that seems to be where the basis of the opportunity is that you're talking about today.
Low impurities, and that's really the trick. There's not many iron ores around the world that have low impurities within it, and we're very, very fortunate to have that in Newfoundland and Labrador, and that's what really makes it different.
You can process this stuff at a lower carbon footprint, and Rio Tinto doesn't have that profile everywhere around the world, and most mining companies don't. They have it here in Labrador. Of course, it's important from the environment, but also in these days is a differentiator in the business case, which is why we're so excited to see the investment here in Newfoundland and Labrador. The province has never been in a better position.
Well, here's another story about the province's resources. The Premier is speaking today about the amendments to the Atlantic Accord. Ottawa introduced the changes yesterday, which would see regulatory responsibility for offshore wind power fall to the newly named Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador Offshore Energy Board, what was formerly known as a CNLOPB. Now, one of the remaining details to sort out is how the province will retain control over wind power developments closer to shore. And that means defining what's known as the jaws of land.
Very lucky to have, 20,000 kilometers of coastline, and we want to make sure that as a government that we're trying to take more responsibility in terms of the development of that particular area, those particular areas. So the Minister and I have committed to work very quickly towards an MOU to within the next 30 days to understand the process to determine the jaws of land. I mean, obviously the jaws of land is a loose term, and we would like for it to become more definitive, and with a special concentration on priority areas first, but with a lens to a more global definition. And I'm confident in discussion with the Minister that he certainly appreciates our position as the province of really having exclusivity with respect to the regulatory regime on the inshore. Of course, there will be still overlap with respect to fishing in particular, and have to honor that what's rightfully belongs to DFO, for example.
SIRT, the province's police watchdog, is responsible for policing the police, and it's now collaborating with various groups to collect race-based data. SIRT wants to uncover inequalities and identify patterns of bad behavior of police. The director sat down with our Ariana Kelland to explain why.
We haven't collected enough data so far to identify any trends, and again, it's not a simple exercise to determine how you're going to collect the data. So it's a more complicated and lengthier process than you might think, and it involves collaboration, of course, with communities who are involved. And again, we've reached out to several communities, Indigenous communities and organizations, in terms of collaborating on how do we collect this data, what should be included, when should we collect it, what form should it be collected in, how should we maintain the data. So there are a lot of questions, issues, and policies that need to be resolved, but we're including everyone. I've always believed in a collaborative approach myself, and the more information I can get about others' perspectives, those who are involved, the better.
Why is it so important to have this sort of data to see who is making these complaints?
So again, it's important because it helps us identify any particular patterns or any particular inequalities that may exist in the justice system. Our team is about holding police accountable, and if there are particular patterns that exist within police agencies involving criminal behavior, we need to know that so we can better serve the people and better deal with these cases.
We're in such a strange time right now for policing, not just here in this province, but right across North America. And you have a unique opportunity to kind of see things on the back end. Did taking on this job in any way shock you when you looked at police officer behavior and the complaints that were coming in? Or were you not naive to that because you have worked in the justice system for so long?
Right, so I'd like to think that part of the reason I was appointed was the amount of experience I had in the criminal justice system from a lawyer's perspective. And so I've spent, as you mentioned, I've spent most of my career representing individuals against the power of the state in court day after day, oftentimes criticizing police officers, pointing out issues with policing in Newfoundland and Labrador. So I was well educated in the way the justice system worked, and so I can't say that I've been particularly surprised or shocked by anything I've seen since taking on this role.
Okay, so time for the long range weather, which means looking ahead to the weekend. Do we have anything to look forward to?
Tomorrow looks really great, especially for the West Coast, but the temperatures look like they're going to back off, especially for the island. So we'll get showers for the island. Still a bit of sun and cloud for Labrador, but we'll have to say goodbye to that really nice weather.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately. So let's take a look. Unless you don't want to. No, stay with us, please. Thursday evening, you see that band of showers there across southern Labrador, and the cloud that's going to move across the island, especially the northern peninsula and down parts of the west coast there. And that will bring showers to the island. So what we'll see here is things really backing off on the east coast to the single digits and along the coast here. But we'll be just a smidge above the double digits for the west coast and the southwest coast. But Marystown will have a warm day, so you'll get a little bit of warm weather on Friday as we head into the weekend. So really just showers or a chance of showers for many areas on the island. Here we've got a sun cloud icon for St. John's, but you could see a chance of showers later Friday evening, but not really throughout the day. Into Labrador, though, you'll see some showers in the Straits, a chance of those, but you'll see a mix of sun and cloud really for the rest of Labrador, with Labrador City Wabash area being the hot spot, and down in the single digits for the rest of Labrador, between 4 and 9 degrees in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Moving on to Saturday now. And Friday in the overnight, you'll really see those showers move across the island, more clearing skies for Labrador as we go into Saturday. Still more showers for the island. We'll see them more here in the Avalon now, 8 degrees in St. John's and into Gander as well. Temperatures coming down for Marystown from 19 to 13 on Saturday. Showers for Central, Grand Falls, Windsor at 5 degrees and 4 in Corner Brook. And that's going to be a really big swing in temperature from, you know, the 30 with the humidex that we could possibly see tomorrow. So of course we get all that nice weather during the week and not on the weekend. Into Labrador, you look like you got the best of it yet again. 18 in Labrador City Wabash, 10 in Nain, 14 in Happy Valley Goose Bay, mix of sun and cloud for the Straits, and for Cartwright, 7-8 degrees for those regions as well. Taking a look now at our extended forecast, the 5-day. It looks like we'll have some cloud tomorrow, mix of sun and cloud on Friday. Chance of showers really for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Not looking great for the East Coast going into the weekend. For central Newfoundland, you've got more showers. Tomorrow's your nice day with 26, and then it really just plummets down to 9 and stays in the single digits for Saturday as well. A little bit warmer on Sunday and Monday, but still that chance of showers. For western Labrador, western Newfoundland, 26 degrees, dropping by almost 16 degrees on Friday, down to possibly 4 degrees on Saturday, back to the teens for Sunday, Monday, but still those chance of showers. And as we move to Labrador, again, you've got the better forecast here of the province. Some showers on Thursday for eastern Labrador, mix of sun and cloud Friday, Saturday, Sunday, back to showers. Similar forecast for western Labrador. And here is our photo of the day. And if you want to send us any photos, you can do so at nlphotos@cbc.ca. That is a fiery sunset.
It is. It almost looks warm. They say it's usually warmer in CBS,
yeah,
right?
it is. Yeah, compared to St. John's.
I can't believe tomorrow is June 1st.
Wow.
May flew by. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hope to see you tomorrow.
Good night.